This episode, Brooms and Brushes, What You May Not Know. In this episode, the Handyman pros have a discussion about brooms and brushes, what you need to know about effectively cleaning with a broom or a brush. Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation on your home maintenance and repair. This edition is entitled Brooms and Brushes, What You May Not Know. To help me explain, I'm here with my ever-cheerful co-host and old buddy, John. John, what have you been doing this week? Tell me a story.
Well, Larry, one of the things I did with a little bit of a break that I had here this week was I decided to dive into my old toolbox and see what I had in there. And it's been a long time since I did that. And I found all kinds of good things in there.
Things you'd forgotten about all these years, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've forgotten about all that stuff. And but the thing of it is that I actually ran across some projects I'll be talking about later, that I needed some, regular tools that I haven't used in a while. And outside of the handyman stuff. And after I got through digging around, I was like, I'm putting myself to shame here. I need to clean up all this stuff. And it's been, long time. So I did that. And I have only got through a quarter of it, to clean it up, pull all the stuff out of the box, clean up all the drawers and reline them and everything, a whole bit. Anyways, long story short, so that made a whole bunch of garbage on the floor and everything I'm throwing around, and there I am sweeping up the garage floor.
Yep.
And I have an old broom that I used, and I was like, I remember the conversation that you and I had about this, and brooms are just not brooms.
No, they're not.
People just, maybe that's something that we should have a little bit of a discussion about is brooms, because when you pick up a really nice broom and use it, there's a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, so the genesis for this show came from me when I was actually out on site with one of our guests from Ryan Phelps, the Warner Robins handyman. And I asked him, so we were cleaning concrete, right? And I have a specific broom that is an outdoor broom, and it's made for concrete. And I said, here, use this. And he's like, oh my God, I've never had a broom that works on concrete like this one. And I'm like, because it's made for concrete. Like, are you not aware of what goes on in brooms and brushes? And he's like, no. I was like, well, okay, right. Here comes the show. I feel it. I got it. So that was it. So Johnny, you did some research on brooms and brushes, and I find this interesting. So we're going to start with a brief history, folks. This is just
it's kind of funny, and this is the history of brooms, right? They go back to my philosophy is everything starts with Egypt, but it's somewhere back in that time, with twigs and stuff like that.
I think it's longer than that.
But the first modern broom, they was really mass produced in 1797. We don't need all the details, but this guy out of Massachusetts, a farmer, and I guess you can't get away with this anymore, but it was his name was Levi Dickinson, and he had the idea to make his wife a broom as a gift to clean their house with.
Yep,
so I'm not quite sure how far that might go anymore.
Straight to the doghouse.
So by the 1800s, this kid they were selling hundreds of these brooms a year, and the rest is history. So, but I had to delve back in. I'm like, the history of this, for all of us guys out there,
Well, because before that, brooms were handmade, right? I mean, you understand a broom was handmade. It was
absolutely.
it was a stick with some bristles put on it that was tied on with a piece of rope or string. That's or whatever the hell they had, I guess.
Absolutely.
That was it. So everybody made their own brooms, right? So beginning of 1800s, and so it starts. Anyway. Keep going, Johnny.
But so it was so that gets you a little bit of the background. Anyways, that being said, The thing about when we had the discussion on this, and you brought it up, because a lot of people take this stuff for granted, but it's really the where and the whats and the whys of what kind of a job are you trying to accomplish with a broom? Now, I remember the brooms when I was working as a aircraft mechanic and stuff. We had some great big brooms that were just, man, those things were awesome. And then I just went down and bought, a cheap broom down at the big box store, just for the garage and stuff. And, you wind up pushing that broom, like 4 or 5 times over the same spot, right? To get everything
to get
up.
it to move. Yeah.
You're right. Right. So, and then, there's different bristles on these things, and we'll talk about that. But, it's where you're going to use it. Are you going to use it on a finished floor? You're not going to use a concrete broom on a hardwood floor.
No.
Of course.
Bad idea.
But there's when you folks start to think about where you're going to use a broom, it's what kind of broom then that what are we doing here?
It's tool selection, Johnny. It's tool selection.
Right. That's exactly right. So, is it a finished floor? Okay, for example, I just mentioned that warehouses and shops, when I was in the shop, it's a whole different story. Or, like you just mentioned, like a concrete broom, maybe it's on a very rough surface.
Right.
And there's different brooms made for different functions.
Yes, it's true. It's true. And I mean, I notice it most with the concrete broom because it's a really stiff bristled brush, and it just looks like a regular broom. But I would never put that like on a finished floor because I believe it'll scratch the living daylights out of it. So not such a good idea. And it's basically brooms are made for jobs, right? So just like any tool, right? Brooms they're different. There's different specs, if you want to call them that, right? So there's different jobs for everything that does. There's fine bristles, there's medium bristles, there's heavy bristles, there's bristles made of corn, there's bristles made of nylon, there's bristles made of. I think this concrete broom I have is like PVC or something. I don't know. It's really stiff and it's resilient. It's a great. I actually love that broom because I use it a lot. And I sweep a lot of concrete. It's great for a deck too when you're outside. But anyway, that's what they're made for. And then, are you cleaning? Are you going to use any water? There's what kind of chemicals are you going to use? There's all kinds of things. These are just little things, but you can go out and buy a broom and you say, it doesn't really do it. And it's like, yeah, but you're on a finished floor where you need a really fine lots of bristles, right? So lots and lots of bristles get you a much better clean job. Problem is, on rough surfaces, it doesn't work that well. So anyway, different types of brooms, right? What do we got, Johnny?
Well, you've got different, like you just mentioned that you have a corn broom and you got other, cheap brooms out there that, you run down to the store like I did and you're just going to buy some cheap, a cheap broom. And of course, as soon as you start using a corn broom, everybody knows what that is out there, I'm sure.
Explain it. Well,
it was made, it's your kind of a pale yellow looking.
Looks like
broom,
straw.
Looks like straw. It's
kind of a half round top is what it is.
Yeah,
half round top, and it's corn bristles.
Yeah, all bound together with string on the top and rope or whatever you want to call it. But they're not going to last very long. They aren't really meant to. You might go out, swipe the stoop off a couple times with it, and that's it. I mean, I will tell you one of my pet peeves is when I do buy a regular broom, is that the handle starts to get loose.
Yep.
Or cracks, breaks. They're wood, and it starts to split after a while when they get wet. Over the years. So, but there's the cheap ones, and then there's contractor brooms, and then there's kind of the deluxe broom that goes goes up from there.
Yep.
And it's all about making an investment in these things, and it really is incredible the different types of brooms out there.
Yeah.
And if you're really serious about running a business, even if I'll take that back. Even if you want something that's going to last and you put it in your garage, it might be worth spending $40 on a broom.
Yep. I agree with all of those points, and again, jobs too. So when I'm talking about it, there's 2 different head types, right, on a broom. There's kind of the narrow head type, or they're sort of squarish, small, probably 9 inches wide, something like that. I didn't put a tape measure on it, but figure. And then there's the longer, like push brooms, right, which range from I don't know 18 inches out to 36 or perhaps bigger. I've never seen one bigger, but I have seen a 36-inch one, which was a bear to push, by the way. But we're kind of using these interchangeably, but again, it just depends on your job. I know me personally, I use the small-headed brooms a lot more. I have a push broom, but I use the small-headed one all the time. It's important to us, John, because one of the things when we talk about this, if we're going to differentiate ourselves as handymen, I like to leave a place cleaner than when I left, especially in the work area that I'm working. Now, I don't go through and clean somebody's whole house, but in the area that I'm working, I want to leave it clean. And the fastest, there's 2 ways to do it. I carry a shop vac, but I don't like breaking the shop vac out all the time because it's big and it's bulky and it's heavy. And so I whip that broom out a lot of the times and sweep, and I have, what do I have? I have 3 different brooms that I carry. So I have an inside broom, an outside broom, and I actually have a push broom that I carry as well. But I haven't used the push broom, and I can't tell you how long. But I sweep up, and then I have a dustpan, and I sweep it in the dustpan, and if there's anything left, I then vacuum that up, usually with a shop vac. It just saves me a lot of time because I use the battery-powered shop vac, right? So that's my technique, but that's to give a quality job at the end because I want the house clean, right, John? I want it in better shape than when I started.
Right.
So that's
right.
That's my thing.
Right.
But yeah, and again, and I want one that's going to, obviously it's kind of it's just a tool like the rest of our tools. We want something that's going to last. I don't want something that's going to fall apart and I have to go buy it, 5 times a year or something like that. My concrete broom that I have, I don't even remember when I bought it. It was been that long ago. It's been that long ago. So anyway.
Yeah, so there's some really great products out there. I carry a really nice broom that I bought with that I use all the time to sweep up, just like you said, and then I'll vacuum up whatever's left.
Right.
But I think it's important to buy something that's really nice. And I tell you what, I hate when I have tools that don't work. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's brooms. It doesn't matter whatever, right? That just doesn't, come up to spec.
Makes all the difference in the world. It helps. It saves you time, money, and aggravation, right? Because, folks, we came up with that saying largely because we get tired of being aggravated. I know I do. And time for us is everything. So time is money, as they say. So I hate being aggravated because I don't have a tool that doesn't do the job. And I also hate wasting time. So between those 2 things, I try to make sure I have the right tool for the right job. Now, that doesn't work 100% of the time, but most of the time that's what we're operating on. So let's get a little bit into the brooms. We didn't really talk too much about it, but the brooms that you have, John, are they fine bristle or are they a rougher bristle?
Well, the one I use for the inside is finer. It's a softer bristle, because it's on a lot of finished floors and tile. It's on somebody's inside, right? But I do have one of my brooms is very stiff that I use for, I'll wash like carpets, out of the car, mats and things like that. And I'll use this to scrub it. I'll throw some soap on it, on the mats, and I'll use this thing where a soft bristle brush, I mean, you're not going to get anywhere with it. And I'll scrub out the, boy, you could scrub out the shower with it, but it's, it's a very stiff, it's a smaller one. So I can get into some very tight spaces. And then I also have, kind of one of those real stiff ones like you do, like a concrete, and it's like a street broom.
Yeah.
Like a street broom where you can push a lot of material with it, stone and sand and everything else with it. So that, I've got all 3 of those, and it's kind of funny, after a while, you don't really realize that you're going after a certain broom. You're unconscious competent.
Yeah,
right?
you just grab
Wait
it.
a minute,
grab what you need. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and then I've got a very small little broom with a little basket, a dustpan combo, that I've got downstairs that I was actually introduced to a long, long time ago when I was building my basement. And somebody says, "Hey man, what you need is this, just a little broom." like one-handed little broom, but it's kind of it's a stand-up with a stand-up dustpan.
Yep. Yep.
And he goes, I'm like, what are you going to do with that? He goes, you will not be without one of these after you see it. And sure enough, that was one of those things, so that's another one I've got. And so that was lesson learned, 40 years ago. But
and you've had one ever since, haven't you?
And I've had that one ever since. He goes, here, take it.
See?
So I'm like, beautiful.
Nice.
You. So, and I still use it to this day.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So one other thing. So these things we're talking about also are interchangeable with brushes. Now, I have a really nice soft bristle brush that I use if I'm working over a countertop, and I can sweep off into my dustpan. So I carry one of those. I generally don't carry any other brushes that are, I'm going to say, like rough or anything, because if I'm doing rough stuff, it's usually on the ground. So seeing that I'm kind of tall, I do that with a broom. But I do have a brush that's a soft bristle brush that I carry along with my dustpan so that I can sweep off countertops and stuff like that. So all of these things we've talked about are also the same as with brushes. And if you're walking around and you're bored, walk through that aisle and see. You'll understand what we're talking about the minute that you get in there, and you start playing with these different things. I think that's kind of the best thing is as a kind of an overview. We're just trying to let you know that there are specific brushes and brooms for the job.
And I think after you listen to this, and when you do go down that aisle, you're going to pay more attention to it, because before you kind of walk past it and you don't even realize it.
Right.
Unless you're paying attention.
Right.
And then I carry some very small little brushes that I use for detailing cars and rims and things like that, that are very stiff. And then there's grout brushes, and you folks out there, you understand what I'm saying here, but there's specific types of brushes for every instance. So it's like Larry said, when you walk down the aisle, and you see it, now you'll be able to understand what we're talking about.
Yep.
And come to think of it, this whole conversation right here kind of brings all this back to surface. So when I go back to one of the big box stores or whatever, I'll be looking down that aisle again to see if they have all the different ones, or do I have to go to a special place, supply house somewhere to get them.
Yep, got it. So John, question. The other day, you were telling me that spaceship landed in your backyard and they were sweeping. What were they sweeping out? Please tell me, what kind of broom were they using?
I don't know if they were using a broom, Larry. I think they were sweeping my phone for messages. I don't know. The spaceship landed. And now that I got all my tools cleaned up, I'm ready to take that sucker apart.
It's about time. Well, folks, if you enjoy the Handyman Pros radio show, please tell your friends and neighbors. We would really appreciate it. We're trying to grow our listenership, and the best way to do that is to refer us off. Yeah, we tell corny jokes and all that stuff, but we give you some insight that maybe perhaps you don't get anywhere else. And things like brooms and brushes. Did you even know? Did you know there's different kinds of brooms and brushes? If you do have any questions, comments, or concerns, please send us an email, questions@Handyman Pros Radio Show. We are on Facebook at Handyman Pros, and also we're on Twitter, which is @Handyman Radio. So we want to thank you for listening, and we will see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.